This is an example of a paper where causal research has been done. So you can see the variables. This is a multivariate analysis: environmental concern, attitude, perceived behavioral control, subjective norm, purchase intention. So these are all correlated. Further, through correlation tests, through these values that you see, 0.355, 0.085, so this is primarily a quantitative analysis, okay? And this is an example of a paper. You could read this. But again, I'll say this is a very, very common model in management, and they are very, very known variables. The purpose of taking this in an FTP is so that you can relate to it. But if I write a research paper, I'll not take any of these variables. Okay, so I'm just explaining to you the research design, that the quantitative research design, conclusive, definite, structured questionnaire to be used, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is about causal research. There are a few free websites for research. So when you're doing any of the research, through any of the research design, you will need data, and that data can come through these websites. Okay, these are the websites you can note down, which are really giving up free data. Okay, so I also got this from Google. So in case you want to find out a paper, you could go to these websites. Okay, I have to come to type of data collection, and why I want to come to that is because as per your research design, you select a data collection technique. Okay, so when we are doing exploration, and this is structured, so this is actually true, so this is written in books. So I am, when I make this classification of which data collection to do in exploration, and which data collection to do in description, and which data collection to do in causal, what I am doing is I am quoting Malhotra and Dash for this classification. When you go through different books, you would find different classifications for exploratory, different for descriptive, different for causal. Now there are mixed methods which are coming. So mixed method, concurrent, triangulations, sequential research. So mixed methods are also there. But for the basic three types of research design that I've spoken about, the type of data collection is going to be what is being given in Malhotra and Dash. I'm taking that book as a as a basis for this classification. Okay, so sometimes you will see a mix of one technique going here and there, which is absolutely fine, which is not wrong. And there are new research papers which are coming, so they say that maybe, for example, ethnography could be done quantitatively also, so that's okay. But the basics, because we're into a basics of research workshop, I think the basics you should be knowing, and then as much as you read. Okay, so Malhotra and Dash does not speak about concurrent research. He does not speak about triangulations in qualitative, quantitative research designs. So all that comes through reading research papers on research design. So right now, let's keep it simple. Let's keep it primary. According to Malhotra and Dash, 2018, the data collection techniques used for exploratory research design are only these. Okay, so let me describe them. So there is secondary data, which okay, and let me describe one by one. There's something called a projective technique. Now, what is projection? Respondents project their underlying motivation and beliefs on something else. So when we are doing an exploratory research, I told you it is not definite, and the tool that I take to them has to be open-ended. I am looking at one sentence from me, and I want a lot of data from them. I want textual data. I want transcripts of 2000 words each from a sample. My sample size is very small, from 25 to 65, and I have to find a new variable. So these were all the characteristics of exploratory research, just to revise. So when I do a projective technique, what am I trying to do? I am trying to project my feelings on someone else. Why do I use a projective technique? A projective technique in exploration is used when you cannot ask a sample a question directly. So I might not be able to ask a question like, do you smoke? very openly in a particular community of India. At the same time, I cannot, directly ask a question on do you drink when it comes to the Arab countries, because there are religious implications of this. But then, if I'm working for an alcohol company and I'm doing research for them, or if I'm working for a cigarettes company and I'm doing a research for them, I will have to ask these questions. Similarly, projective techniques are also used in political science. So if we come to the political scenario of India, okay, so people could be pro Modi and anti Modi, okay, but when you're asking them very directly, it might become a very difficult for someone to answer. People might be scared to answer. So we put in a question in a projective technique. What is a projective technique? We don't ask the question directly. What we do is we project the feeling of the person to someone else. So suppose I ask him a question: what do you think about these youngsters smoking a lot nowadays? I might ask him a question like, what do you think about smoking scenes being shown in a movie or in a public telecast? I'll ask him questions like these. On the basis of what he tells me, so he's going to give me words, he's going to give me motivations, beliefs, attitudes, a lot of transcript, a lot of qualitative data he'll give me. On the basis of what he gives me, I will be able to analyze that and say, okay, this man probably is pro smoking or anti smoking. So this is what is projective techniques. It is used a lot in psychology because especially when adolescents, they come to a psychologist and they are going through a stress or they are going through a depression, they don't open up very easily. And this is a generation nowadays, Generation Z as we call them, where they are very delicate children, and when they come to a psychologist, they are not comfortable, they will not open up. You might talk to them, okay, what's your problem, how is school? They'll not open up. So sometimes we have to use projective techniques with them. There are methods of using projective technique, like for example a sentence completion. Okay, so you could give them a sentence like, my life is good because, and tell them to fill it up. On the basis of what they fill up, you can assess what their problem is. Okay, there are other techniques like showing a picture, a very weird picture. Okay, so when they see the picture and it's weird, so it's not a form of anything, it's a very weird abstract picture, but looking at that they will think something and they will jot it down. On the basis of what they think, I can say what is their problem. So this is projective technique. It's a qualitative technique. Again, the basics are same. Loosely defined, not concrete, I want to find out a new variable. Unstructured, flexible. Another technique which is very common is the case study. Now I again over here quote Dr. Prabhakar. He gave this example in one of his FTPs where he was explaining exploratory research design to us. He said that there was a case study on a man called Phineas Gage. And Phineas Gage was a man who had an accident. You could go back and read about it. It's a very interesting case study. And a rod goes through him, and how Dr. Harlow, to whom he came, he treated him. So Dr. Harlow has written a whole transcript on this man. He followed this man after the accident for 7 years. And through the case study of this one man, he concluded that brain is related to personality way back in the year 1848. So this conclusion that brain is related to personality, okay, came through a qualitative research of a man called Phineas Gage by Dr. Harlow through a exploratory research technique called case study. In business also, common case studies, that this is a psychological case study. I've given you an example. In business also, we take the case study of Ranbaxy, the rise and fall of Ranbaxy. So we take this up in classes also, where we explain that how the last hires of the company doomed the company. Okay, so we start from the beginning till end, and then we come to certain conclusions. So for example, this case study, the conclusion was that in this case study of Ranbaxy, where we say from the start to end, the conclusion was that management and ownership should be differentiated. Okay, they should not be mixed up. So case study is a technique where you take only one sample. Only one sample. You could take maximum 2-3 similar companies which have doomed because of family succession maybe, but you take only 1 to 2 samples. Okay, it can be done only on one sample also. So in case study, unlike other techniques of exploration where you need 25 personal interviews, 60 focus group, no, in case study one sample is enough. There is a debate over case study being an exploratory research or an descriptive research, but again, as I said, I'm going by Malhotra and Dash, and for me it is an exploratory technique, exploratory research design data collection technique. This is an example of a paper of case study. Okay, so researchers are trying to see the impact of sustainability on community groups on the basis of case study. So they pick up one particular city, say for example Bhopal in India, and they do a whole case study on those people and their sustainable practices, and then draw conclusions. Okay, so this is case study. There's another technique in exploratory research or qualitative research which is called ethnography. So ethnography is when we that's an example of an ethnographic paper. And ethnography is a long-term study, so we have to remain with the sample for somewhere around 6 months, somewhere around a year. We have to gel into their culture. It is generally done when we are studying culture. It is most famous in sociology, anthropology, psychology, these political science. These fields imply ethnography to a very long extent. It is a study of cultures, and thus we have to get into that culture. So we get into that culture for somewhere around 6 months. We stay with these people. There are ethical concerns in this, that whether we should be telling them that we are staying with them or not. But end of the day, what we want is, we want data. We want transcripts, we want textual data, we want qualitative data. And why we are living with them is because when we live with them in ethnography, when we live with an ethnic culture, it's only then that we understand it. Okay, so it's a long-term process. You live with the respondents for 6 months to 1 year. There was one research which I heard which was somewhere around 3 years. The person had to live with that community, and you come out with cultural parameters. The managerial implication of ethnography. So ethnography as a technique for exploratory research design, I've explained. What is the implication? Now, when IKEA came to India, it did a cultural study of Indians to sell their brand IKEA. So that is the essence of ethnography. So that is the managerial implication of doing an ethnographic cultural research through exploratory research design. Data collection for let me just go back. I've explained most of them, but you all are aware of a personal interview, a personal in-depth interview where we take an interview 1-to-1. You should be aware of focus group interview where we take 8 to 12 people, okay, and we let them talk and debate over a topic. So because secondary data, which is past papers, focus group, which is 8 to 12 people, and you interview them, personal interview, 1-to-1 interview. I think these are very common techniques, so I'm not taking time on them. Projective techniques, ethnography, case study, okay, these are techniques which were new, so I have tried and covered them with examples. Okay, so getting data from secondary data or personal interviews or focus group, this is something very common, so I'm not taking time on them. But personal interview, focus group, they are all open-ended questions, okay, and they are made for exploration, because the data collection tool for exploration is open-ended. It is flexible, because I don't want to limit my sample, my participant. I want him to speak and speak and speak and speak, so that I can have a lot of textual and qualitative data, so that I can find out that new variable in exploratory research design. Now let us come to the data collection techniques for description and causal research. So when I'm doing conclusive research, which includes descriptive and causal research, which of course is numeric, okay, it is statistical, I can use a survey questionnaire, I can use observation technique, I can use experimentation. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of each of these. Let me come to survey questionnaire. All of you are aware of this technique, so you can see the questionnaire. It is a closed-ended question, it is structured, it has multiple choices, it doesn't let the respondent give any qualitative data, it doesn't let the respondent speak at all. Okay, you have a listing, please tick, and what I will do after this is I will do a percentage analysis. Okay, I will find out a mean median mode, and that finishes my descriptive research design study. So this is a questionnaire. The research tool for survey technique. Okay, so this is the first one which we use in descriptive studies. The worst part is when my students come up with a they say we are doing exploration, and they bring a questionnaire to me, and they say, ma'am, we'll do exploration through questionnaire. That is when I really feel I've failed as a faculty, because exploration has to have the open-ended unstructured tools like personal interviews, focus group, projective techniques, case study, ethnography. And I'm not saying this, Malhotra and Dash, the legend in research, says so. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to descriptive research, quantitative research, definite research, where the variable is known to me, I don't have to find a new variable. I can go for a questionnaire for data collection, which is a survey technique. I could go for observation, which could be a lab observation or a naturalistic. So on the left side, you can see monkeys jumping around. This is a naturalistic observation. If you bring the same monkey to the lab, okay, if this is a researcher and he's pulling him into the lab, the behavior of the monkey changes. Now you can replace these monkeys with participants. So if you see a participant in an open market and you're trying to list his consumer behavior, it's going to be a naturalistic observation. If you're looking for psychology stream people, if you are looking at a child at home, his behavior at home, that is naturalistic observation. But the moment he comes to a psychologist, or the moment he comes to school, his behavior becomes a lab observation. There is a lot of debate going on, especially in a book called Saunders and Lewis. I found this technique of observation written into explorative research design as well as descriptive. So yes, there's a debate over observation, that whether it is purely a descriptive research design or it could be used for exploratory research design. There is a debate going on that. You would find papers which say it is only exploratory. You would find researchers saying it's absolutely descriptive. But again, I'm going by Malhotra and Dash and putting it into descriptive study. Another example of observation is when you are suppose measuring the average height of a person. So if you stand and notice the height, if you're standing at a particular place, say a place in Ludhiana in India, a city in Ludhiana in India, and you're measuring the heights of those people, observing the heights. Okay, so you're not going and asking them in a survey, you're just observing. Okay, and the person doesn't even know that you're observing him. So if you observe the height of the people of Ludhiana city vis-a-vis the height of people in Delhi city, you will find that Ludhiana people, both boys and girls, are taller than people in Delhi. So this can be concluded, okay, and it is statistical data. It can be concluded through observation. You don't necessarily have to go and give him a survey and say, okay, so what's your height? Okay, so there are other things like, for example, in marketing, I'll give you an example. We do observation in showrooms. So in luxury brands like Louis Vuitton or Gucci, I could go and stand at a showroom as a researcher, just keep quiet, don't let them know, because what I want is a naturalistic observation. Had I called these consumers to the campus and taken observed how they pick up things, that would be a lab observation where they know that I'm observing them. I would rather prefer naturalistic observation. So I would go to a showroom of Gucci, go to a showroom of Louis Vuitton in Delhi, and uh, watch them very naturally. So when they enter the showroom, which corner do they go to first? Which rack do they pick up things from? Is it the top rack, the middle rack, or the lower rack? When they see bags, do they also pick up shoes of the same color? These are all observational techniques where we can list the findings. How many people entered the showroom? So that is basic statistics. How many people who chose to buy a bag also chose to buy shoes? Could be done through observation. It's a number game, it's statistics, it's description, can be done through observation. So I've given you a few examples of observation. Experimentation. So I've given you a paper of experimentation, and the best example I can give you is experimentation is where there was a very old theory of Pavlov. Okay, so he had a learning theory. I based this example on that. So Pavlov's theory of learning says that you could condition the mind, okay, and you can change it. But he proved it through an experiment on a dog. So it's the very famous Pavlov's experiment on a dog. So every time he gave the dog some food, he used to ring a bell. So within a span of some 30 days, the dog got immune to or got learned, got a learned approach to that bell. So now, he never used to salivate when food used to come. Rather, he used to start salivating when the bell used to ring, because he had been conditioned in that way that when the bell rings, then you will get food. So similarly, even in marketing, we condition you. So for example, if there's a product like Coca-Cola, and I advertise it through a Santa Claus, and the moment you think of that red can of Coca-Cola, you start thinking of Santa Claus. The moment you start thinking about Santa Claus and his red dress, you think about Christmas, and you get happy, and your mind gets associated. What the company is trying to do is associate happiness to the brand. Okay, causal relationship. Okay, how do you do that? It has done it by bringing in a variable which is Santa Claus. So when the ads show Santa Claus, red color, Coke, red color, you associate that color to happiness, you associate the brand to happiness, you find a causal relationship between the red color and happiness, between the brand and happiness. And what is the managerial implication of this tuning that the brand has done? The moment you buy a Coke can, you start feeling happy. So that could increase the sales of the company. That is the managerial implication to this. Okay, again, this can be done on two groups. One is the experimental group, and one is the control group. So it could be done on a set of people who plainly buy Coke and they haven't seen the ad of a Santa Claus, vis-a-vis a set of people, again 500 age. It's causal research, it is statistical, it is concrete, it is closed-ended, and it has a very large sample, 500 types. So you could take a set of 500 people, 500 Americans who just take Coke and who have not seen the ad of Santa Claus and Coke being related. You could take another experimental group, which are 500 people who drink Coke but who have seen the ad of Santa Claus, and then you could ask them if happiness is related to the brand, causal relationship, happiness and the brand Coke. So you can ask the same question to the control group, you can ask the same question to the experimental group, and then you can see if those two match. So if the experimental group shows that yes, I do associate Coke to happiness, and the control group shows that no, I don't associate Coke to happiness, then you can say that this one variable, Santa Claus, has brought in a causal relationship. Okay, because one group was exposed to it and one was not exposed to it. This is something I've explained from the social science perspective, marketing perspective. The same when it was done by Pavlov on the dog. So that was more of a scientific or And by the way, that's a psychological theory also. Pavlov's classical conditioning experiment, they say, where he took a dog and he noticed that the moment the dog was given food, he used to salivate. So he brought in a new variable, the bell. So every time he gave the food, he rang the bell, and slowly and gradually, the cause effect became the bell and the dog salivating. Okay, so that he called classical conditioning, something which is very well used in marketing also. So all these associations, the new variables, for example, Santa Claus in Coke, for example, the small little dog Pug when it came to Vodafone or Hutch. So they are all causal researchers. People have the marketers already know that the moment you bring in this variable, there will become a causal relationship between you, the consumer, and the brand. The causal relationship of happiness, the causal relationship of loyalty. So when Vodafone brought in that new variable called the Pug dog in the ads, what it wanted to do is it wanted to form a causal relationship of what? Vodafone and loyalty. It wanted the consumers to see this causal relationship. So that is an example of causal research design. So what I've covered over here is the primary three types of research design. I have covered examples of these research designs. Okay, they are very basic research designs because it's what I understand is that this is a very preliminary method of choosing a research design. Based on the research design, you have a data collection technique. Okay, based on the research design, you have an analysis technique. So if you don't have your research design correct, it will be very difficult to complete the research, number one. Number two, you don't choose a research design and take up a topic. No, you first take up a topic and then choose a research design. Based on the research design, you choose a data collection. Based on the data collection, you do analysis. Okay, so it's a very that's what I said. Coming to my first slide, the first time I showed the research design, I said it is a blueprint, it is a map of the total research that you're about to do. So I just hope this session was helpful to you, but in this short span, this is all I could cover. But please do further read. One thing is, please do read Malhotra and Dash's book. Please do read Kothari sir's book. Please do read Saunders and Lewis research books. They tell you about the basic research designs. Further, if you go to Google Scholar and see papers which are related to research design, you will find the new types of research designs which are coming. These are very preliminary. So there is a mixed method research design, where what is mixed method? We are using qualitative and quantitative together. So we are going to do exploration and description together in one paper, in one PhD thesis. And that is really coming up because in olden times, if I was a qualitative researcher, I only used to do qualitative study. If I was a quantitative researcher, I only used to do quantitative study. But now things are changing. So the mixed method has come up. In mixed method also, there are further categories. Like I told you, concurrent mixed method. The qualitative and quantitative go hand in hand at the same time. Then there is sequential mixed method. You first do a quantitative and then a qualitative, or you first do a qualitative and then a quantitative. Okay, there are triangulations. Okay, these are the further advanced research designs, which of course are out of the scope of this FTP, but you can surely go and read about it. You might not find it in books. Okay, but if you see the latest research papers being written by authors on the types of research design, especially when you read about mixed methods. If you read about mixed method in any book, or you read about mixed method in any research paper, these new types of designs that I'm measuring, they will surely be there. And I think you should be aware of them. Being a researcher, you should know nowadays to remain updated what is a concurrent and what is a sequential, and triangulations and explanatory research. You should be knowing all that. So further, as much as you read, further will you learn. Right, that'll be all from me. Thank you so much.